I see it as a normal talk, as an empty talk. Look at he made the statement in an event that was a renewed hope, whatever. He made the statement in that event. That event was essentially for his political ambition.
We will defeat this unacceptable terrorism and banditry. Sounds so much like a prayer, but you want to know the pastor is the president of this very country. That's the President Tinubu saying that yes, Nigeria will defeat terrorism and banditry because it's unacceptable in the land. More like a prayer, perhaps a reality. Well, time will tell. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that as we have the day breaking much further. Of course, this is the newspaper headline segment on Daybreak Live, newspaper headlines and analysis, where we check into the stories that are breaking and making the rounds across the nation, Nigeria. Of course, so many of those stories I have with me this morning. The Punch newspaper, Vanguard newspaper, and every other news outlet that we can lay our fingers on this morning. Of course, that big caption is one story I would like to first harp on a bit before we get into what we have today. Of course, yeah, it's on the Nation newspaper, boldly inscribed on the front page of the Nation newspaper, that the president said, we will defeat unacceptable terrorism and banditry in the country, Nigeria. Do you believe that? Perhaps. If you do, please put a comment. We'd like to take the comments, right, on the Facebook platform or YouTube, whichever platform you're using this morning. Now, after that conversation on the top corner of the Nation newspaper this morning as well, U.S. intervention in Nigeria, insecurity is a blessing. And you want to know who said that as well? That's the First Lady, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as you can see this morning. New pay for varsity teachers takes off in line with new deal. That's also on the top corner of the Nation newspaper as well. Now talking a bit of business and foreign. Cardoso, foreign reserves now that's about $49 billion. Appeal courts affirm Senate's power to suspend Natasha. Also a story to check out on the Nation newspaper. For one of time, I'll switch to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper has the story fresh killings, unfortunately. Abductions, heightened security fears amid drone attacks. That's also a story of interest this morning on the Guardian newspaper, if you like. Of course, still talking Guardian, there's GDP figures no longer enough to measure progress, says Shettima, that's the vice president, coming out to say that as well. Senate to harmonize electoral acts today amid protest over real-time transmission. Yesterday, there was chaos. The National Assembly, gatherings of the Occupy National Assembly about the electoral acts. That is also a thing to talk about, something of importance to every Nigerian as we look into 2027 come the election. Now, residents protest as terrorists abduct 7 in Kaduna. Resident protesters, terrorists abduct 7 in Kaduna. Also, something to check out on the Guardian newspaper. Nigeria's internet speed slips, ranks 85th globally. That is also something some maybe online fellows, virtual fellows would like to talk about this morning. Natasha loses suspension appeal as courts cautious 5 million naira contempt fine. Another thing to check out this morning. Now, this day newspaper has interest in the Electoral Act, and that's about the protest as well. But the way it puts it forward this morning, the bold caption on this day newspaper is Electoral Act, coalition of CSOs warns 2027 elections may be compromised. That's the fear of many persons. Some in some quarters have said if you do not go ahead to make election result transmissible from polling units, from centers, it will become a disaster. Election malpractice will be the order of the day. But there's been a lot of questions about that, and we'll check into some of these concerns as well. Tinubu, terrorism giving Nigerians sleepless nights will overcome them all. And someone says, amen. And now that's enough. We have to check into the analysis segment of this show. But I'm not doing this till I have Emmanuel Oladele Abiola join us this morning. Good morning. It's good to have you in the studio today.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So of interest to many Nigerians is a statement that looks like a prayer from the president that, yes, we are doing enough. Now, let's bring it all together with something that has been, also in the news, especially when the First Lady represented Nigeria at a United States prayer conference. And then Donald Trump, the president of the United States, made a comment, passed a very good comment of notes to the First Lady that she's a respectable person. And that, some are saying that's a good way to, some are saying it's not actually a compliment. Others are saying, well, it's a compliment. But whichever case, it's still the president saying he recognizes the First Lady of the Nigerian government, of the Nigerian state, if so to say. Now, let's get it together now. There's been cases about genocide that's been on the lips of the U.S. government every now and then. Just a few days ago, one of the envoys that represent the African community, and that's Dagvin Anderson, was also in Nigeria to meet with the president. There's been a lot of bilateral relations, engagement, and arrangements, especially in the recent hour that we are now. And that's about a lot of things. But yes, let's speak to the issue that the president said there's going to be a calm after the storm. Some people have lost trust. I want to know where Emmanuel stands.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. I see this as a normal thing a politician would say. It's not a new thing. It's not a genuine talk. Election year is coming, it's fast approaching, that's 2027, and definitely he has to gather some momentum, to gain some traction, to garner some followers and all, right? So he has to say things that will appeal to some sector of the audience, or the populace. So I see what he's saying, I see it as a normal talk, as an empty talk. Look at he made the statement in an event that was a renewed hope, whatever. He made the statement in that event. That event was essentially for his political ambition. So him talking, saying that on that platform says a lot. So I see it as an empty talk. They've been making those promises since he entered administration. Still we are here, and it's getting worse.
You've made mention of something very strong. That it's an empty talk from the president, but I would like to know why you think that is an empty talk, because it's something, if I say something and I do it, you might at first, when I said it, say that's an empty talk until I start working, right? So what are the metrics that you have put on the table of consideration to say that should be a political statement?
Yeah, because he has spent, let's say, this year makes it the third year of him being the president of the country. So several times he has made statements like this. Several times when, imagine, it took US to call our attention to this, for him to start making this statement. He has made all those statements years ago. Now we've not seen any result. They've deployed forces, they've done this, they've done that. These are the normal things that should be happening. So this should not be a new thing. So that's why I see it as an empty talk. He has made those statements times ago, and we've not seen any difference. It keeps getting worse.
Okay, so I get the premise now. The premise is he's been in power for such a long time, and you've not seen appreciable growth in terms of security. Yes, I mean, that's something to debate, but for want of time, we might need to switch focus to another issue that is of interest. There were protests in Abuja yesterday, especially about the Occupy National Assembly protests. We understand how this came about. The Senate saying, you know what, let's not give this a push. Let's just say that they don't have to transmit results from the polling unit, from the polling centers, due to some things, and then they gave a lot of support. Others have said, in fact, Peter Obi, former presidential candidate, also came out yesterday and joined the protest to say, you know what, we are standing by what Nigerians are crying for. This would result into election malpractice. This will result into vote buying, vote rigging, and all of that, and we don't want that to continue in the country. But I would like to get your comprehensive thought on this. What do you make of all of this issue?
Yeah, the Senate Media Committee made a statement very early this morning, yesterday, saying that they will sit today, they will resolve issues, and then Nigerians have a voice. Yes, but I believe we don't need to tell you we have a voice for you to know that we have a voice. All right. Now, coming back to the issue of the issue of the electoral act.
Yes.
What forms the basis of contention now is a clause in the old electoral act, and that clause is so fundamental to push us from being the old Nigerian having the old electoral system to the progressive one. You see nations of the country. You see let's take US as our epitome of example. US has an electoral update that you see the result almost as it is happening. And if that is not happening, therefore there is a fundamental issue going on and which is wrong in our electoral system. So we agitating for that is a fundamental issue that we're emphasizing on. We need to see election results transmitted electorally and on time in real time. Now, I was so saddened by the Senate removing that clause. Like, what are you doing? If you say you're making an electoral to reform, to bring a reform, a fundamental, a total reform, why remove that? In fact, that forms the basis. Pardon me to say, there was a Supreme Court decision that says that electronic reports do not form the basis of a valid result. So you cannot say I've won my election because the website says you've won. No, you have to see the paper. You have to go and check the paper, what the returning officer has written for you to confirm your result. As of this generation, this should not be. As of today, this should not be. We should be able to see election results, and we should be able to place faith on it that yes, this is it. Because if you are not seeing it in real time, something is going on. If you cannot see our result in real time as of today, where the electronic age is going very fast, if you cannot see our result on time, something is very wrong. So yeah, we have a voice and it has to be obeyed.
Okay, so let me exfoliate that a little bit. There were calls yesterday, even on national television, for the removal of the Senate President Godswill Akpabio, because some have said he's the brain behind all of these negations. So I would like to also help us unpack that. What do you make of that? Some are calling that if he doesn't get to do this, then this shows he has failed and he should be rooted out of the system.
Yeah, totally. If this electoral act does not go through, and it does not go through with what we want, because what we want is we want real-time results. We want to see our results electronically. We want reforms in the system. We don't want rigging anymore. We want it to be one person, one vote. If these things are not happening, they failed us. In fact, that's the essence. They failed us. But coming to the issue of impeachment, how many times have you seen a sitting president, sitting governor, sitting anything, sitting candidate being impeached in Nigeria as of the last decade? Very few. In fact, very, very few. So, although yes, it's our right to demand for impeachment, but I don't see it as a viable result. I don't see it as a viable option. However, if the electoral out falls through, they failed us. It needs to go through. It is, in fact, it is a big issue for us as a nation.
You know, so let's stretch away also, maybe not totally away from the Senate chambers, and let's talk Akpoti Uduaghan. There's been that claim, so you know, there's this back and forth we've had this countless number of times, and then there's been the issue, the Senate President against Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan, and it seems now there's a court order that says that appeal court affirms Senate's power to suspend Natasha. When we thought this was already done with, when we thought we had gotten to the end of the tunnel and then we should see light, now we are seeing another court order. But what do you think is going to likely happen to Natasha and maybe the Senate?
Right. So what happened with the Court of Appeal decision was not a new thing. It was just an affirmation. So there's no new order, there's no new penalty, there's no new punishment for her. What the Court of Appeal decision said was that what they did last year was right. So that doesn't mean this year she will have to sit out again. Do you get? So what has happened is that they just said what they did was right. So there's no new issue at this point.
But they ruled out the 5 million naira fine that she also proposed against the federal, the Senate House as well.
Yeah, that's proper. That's proper.
You think it's according to law?
Yeah, it is.
But so some would argue that there's a bit of politics in that as well.
Of course, I understand that point of view because over time our judiciary has not shown that honesty that we demand from them. But once in a while, they come up with this level of brilliance that you just have to give them their flowers. And in this sort of situation, yeah, they've done quite well by upholding the suspension, but then denying the fine. Because it should be just that's what justice should be. Fine was issued against her. So that means she won't be paying the fine, she won't be doing whatever, but the punishment she went through last year was affirmed. And that's how justice should be. Justice should be seen, obvious, that, oh, each of us, it's a win-win situation in that scenario. So yeah, a bit of politics must have been there, of course, but I won't say policy was a big sway on this decision of the court. The Court of Appeal is an holy grail to our judiciary.
Okay, so very quickly, I'll put it to you. What do you think is going to become the end of Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Senate? What do you think is going to be, at the end of the day, are we still expecting something better for her, or better for the Senate, or better for Godswill Akpabio? Because if you actually consider the claims she made against Akpabio and what Akpabio said and all of that, that she did not, you know, attend the Ethics and Privileges Committee meeting that she was invited to, and a lot of that. Some said that the president at some point waded into the situation, but it still felt like there was still, because one time she was going to travel and her passport was denied, and she was making claims that this was the work, the handiwork of, you know, the Senate president, saying that she has the right to travel, she has the right to her passport, and it was returned to her, and all of those claims. But let's see, looking ahead now, projections. What do you think is going to become the end of all of this saga?
I see the light at the end of the tunnel for both of them.
How do you mean?
Because if it's politics, right? So they know what they are doing. They know the game. They know when to shout. They know when to stop. So I see the light at the end of the tunnel for the two of them, because it's just a 4-year term, and the 4-year term is almost ending. Except if they both get re-elected again for the next term or for the next regime, then we might see something else. But at the moment, all the legal battles, all the brouhaha has ended for them at this point. If they are smart.
Okay. Let's talk about the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. She made a comment that I think is of interest. She said, United States intervention in Nigeria, especially in the insecurity in Nigeria, is a blessing. You know, some have said, yes, they called you to say, oh, there's something you should note, and you are noting it. What happened to the fact that you could have called them first when you discovered there was no strength enough, there was no capacity to really cool the tension in the country? So some are maybe alluding to the fact that this administration does not have what it takes to quell tension or to quell insurgency in the country. But I want to know where Emmanuel stands.
Yeah, definitely, this administration does not have it. In fact, most administrations do not have it. We've seen the results. There was the Buhari regime, there was the Jonathan regime. These issues have been reoccurring from years ago. So what we've seen is just progression in deterioration in what is happening. So we see kidnapping rising, terrorism rising, banditry rising. That's what we're saying. And at this stage, I don't see, this regime doesn't have their capacity. That's so certain. Now, the question is, why didn't they ask for help? That's something about diplomacy. Diplomacy, if you ask for help in diplomacy, you are seen as a weak vessel. You are seen as a weak one, and they will take it over you. Imagine the US. I promise you, US is like the devil. If we give you how do you say? He will give you a cap, but he will take the whole head. Look at, I read this morning that US is proposing a drone refueling station in Nigeria now, after they've conducted the bombing campaigns and all. You see that US is the devil. He will, pardon me to put devil in quotes, he will give you something, but we demand a lot. So I understand their hesitation in not asking for help. That's diplomacy, and it's wise. I will put it in, it's wise. However, what we need to do is re-strategize internally, because US has given us help now. Now they're asking for something. So,
well, what do you think the US is asking for?
No, they've started. They asked for a drone refueling system in Nigeria. And the funny thing is that, do you know that most of the diplomatic relations that happen, that we see on TV, we probably see around 30% of it. 70% of it are underneath work. And those are what really matters. So you see, tomorrow, you might start seeing some US companies coming into Nigeria, conducting some activities, maybe oil exploration, mining, and all those things. Those were part of the agreement, but you will not hear them on TV. So most of diplomatic relationships we will see on TV that are evident at 30%. So when you see US bomb Nigeria, then it's asking for a drone refueling system. In fact, I'm scared, because if US is asking for a drone refueling system and we can see it, then there's a lot that we can't see. Another thing is that now US is broadening its intelligence system in Nigeria. So that means US is having a strong goal. That was how it started in Somalia. That was what it started in Libya and some other African countries, even in the Middle East now. So yes, we did right. I would say in that way, we did right. But we should not see ourselves as the child, as a favorite child to the US. Is a tactic. Is a tactic, and we should not fall for it.
Oh, okay. So you think at the end of every of this bilateral agreement, there has to be an agreement.
Oh.
There are favors, because nobody is a Father Christmas in that sense.
Definitely.
Even the US wants something, right? But let's advance it just a bit now. Let's talk world powers. Some have said allegiance to the US is the best. Others have said we've had agreements with China, for example, and we know if you check the mining industry in Nigeria, you find Chinese there.
Yep.
And so there's been that arrangement that might not be visible to everybody, but there's some sort of agreement between all of that. So some have also said, Russia, how about Russia? Talking about world powers, where should Nigeria really belong to ensure that it moves ahead? Or which of these which of these nations can give leverage to the Nigerian state for it to become an African giant as it used to?
Yeah.
What do you? I want to know your thoughts on this. Which of them would you have likened to be the right one for Nigeria to relate with more than the other?
All right. Thank you so much. So at this moment, Nigeria is playing the cat and rat chase. Right? Nigeria is trying to be the golden boy. We are dancing to China, we are dancing to Russia, we are dancing to the US, we are dancing to all those world powers. At this moment, we've not taken a stance yet. So you see Nigeria making agreements with China today, going to the US, and then sometimes with Russia and all. However, first things first, I want you to know is that bilateral relationships, like I said, there's always a devil in the agreement. There's always a devil who wants something better and more. Now, economically, we want to go with China. China is Father Christmas as of today. Father is Santa Claus. He's giving us everything we need. If you ask for $2 trillion loans, China is ready to give you. However, there's some things that
ready to give you for free or give you at a cost.
Thank you so much. Now you realize that road construction in Nigeria now are rarely done by Nigerian companies. Now, most of construction projects, railways, roads, airports, and so other activities, they are done by Chinese companies now, or Lebanese companies, or some other companies. Why? This agreement, that was why I said that agreements made on TV, that you see on TV, are not what is actually going on. So you start seeing Chinese companies taking on road construction projects, and you ask, there are Nigerian companies doing this. That was because of the agreement. Now, if you consider US, yes, US has a military might. Yes, US can do and can say and do. However, what would they do ask? That should be the question. So as of today, I would not say, I would advise Nigerians, I would advise us, we should keep dancing. We are the golden boy at the moment. They want us. So we should still keep playing that game. However, at the end, we also actually have to settle because there's alliance in the world system. You actually have to take a stance that says, this is who I stand with, this is who I stand with. So as of today, my best option will definitely be the US. Of course, I know there's a question about it, but to definitely be US because I don't trust China. I don't trust Russia too.
That's your opinion, but maybe this administration would maybe make a choice someday somehow.
No, they're already making a choice.
They're still dilly-dallying. Yeah. They're not exactly here. But let's take it further. Let's do politics briefly. So you understand the story, the background story, the underlying stories of Fubara and Wike. And again, just this morning, Tinubu holds fresh peace talks with Fubara and Wike. Lawmakers may back down on impeachment process. You mentioned something about impeachment the other time, that we've not seen impeachment in recent times. Of course, I think the last 3 ones we've had, I think one was in maybe 2013. There were many in 2006. Yeah. I think one in 2005, including your state at the time, the governor. But there's been that claim that, oh yes, we are about to have this again with Fubara and the House of Assembly in Rivers State at the time, saying yes, we want to impeach this governor. The governor moved from the party he was to the APC, to the center, like they say. And then there seems to be let there be an umbrella over this guy. If he's in this party, we cannot allow someone in this party to be impeached. It's an affront to the party, it's an affront to the ruling government of Tinubu. So there's been a lot of that, conversations. But, what do you think is going to happen? Because some have also alleged that, why is it taking forever for Tinubu to wade into this issue and settle it? Some have even said it's beyond Tinubu. Or maybe Tinubu likes the way it's going for him, especially distracting the Nigerian people, because sometimes if you have those kind of arrangements, it distracts everybody from the real issue that we are facing. But what do you make of this very quickly?
Yeah, very quickly. I would say Tinubu, yes, Tinubu, it's not beyond Tinubu. However, Tinubu is being cautious. Tinubu is being careful of the effect of what might go after, right? Tinubu is being careful of his own ambitions too. Now, let's talk about impeachment. Like I said, impeachment is difficult now. And Fubara was very smart. He knew when to move from PDP to APC. That time when it was, I think it was suspended, that 6-month period when it was suspended, that would have been the best time for the House of Assembly of Rivers State to have impeached him. But that didn't happen.
But they were suspended too.
They were suspended, right? That was why I said that would have been the best time, but it could not have happened. So he knew when to take his leave and move quickly to APC. So yes, the old brawl between Fubara, Wike, is not beyond Tinubu. However, Tinubu is being cautious because it's a political issue. It's not a governmental issue. Because Tinubu is a president, so he's not seen. Tinubu is seen as our president. He should not take our time. He should not take the time he should be using as a president to serve the APC candidacy or the APC party. There are two different dichotomies. So definitely, Tinubu is being careful not to destroy or tarnish his own candidacy and still play safe in his own party. So yeah, I don't see the issue ending very soon. Although we are seeing some changes, but not very soon.
Emmanuel Ladele, Abiola, thank you very much for joining us on this. You've made very valid points on this very segment of newspaper headlines today.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, we'll now switch focus to the big story. I want to talk about the refinery saga. There's so much in that is good for you to know. And of course, that will be shortly after this break. Stay with us.